Um, okay, so again, there's a model in Rhino that you should be dealing with that uses the Grasshopper files that I have given you in Blackboard. Now this is a beginning point. I will talk more about Grasshopper as we go, but I think it's a good beginning point for you to generate very fast several proposals. Okay, so for that, what I'm going to do is open those files. I'm going to go and actually place them in the P drive, but you should have them again in Blackboard. If you go to references, the Grasshopper files are there. I just happen to place them here, and you will have a couple of Rhino files, and 2 or 3 Grasshopper files. So if I open the Rhino file, you will see this very, very simple. You have like one solid, like with the shape of a box, and then one weird thing here in curve. Okay, so we're going to talk about the beginning steps of Grasshopper. So for that, we need to type Grasshopper and press enter. Okay, you most probably won't have anything here. It will be something like this, totally clean. You can scroll in and out using your center mouse button. You can also right click to pan, and you can select if you had something with the left button. It's very, very similar to the interface in Rhino. When you have Grasshopper open, you can move this window even to the neighboring window. But what I normally do is extend this element a bit so I can locate Grasshopper on top of it. Now you can jump and click the left button into Rhino and work on Rhino, and then click back to Grasshopper and work on Grasshopper. So it's almost like a plugin that you should be able to work in both interfaces at the same time. Just a second, because I'm recording now. But here's the thing, you can open Rhino files independently from the Grasshopper, and you can open Grasshopper files independently from Rhino. So the extension of the Grasshopper is GH, and I'm going to just double click on the G1 Grasshopper file that is also in Blackboard. This is how a typical Grasshopper document looks like. It has this weird elements. They're called basically tools, components, and you can navigate around and select each of them, and they turn green whenever you select them. Okay. Whatever you select and it turns green, in Rhino should turn in green as well. So you know that this tool that we're dealing with in Grasshopper is actually generating this specific element in Rhino. It is important to notice that I cannot select anything from Grasshopper, these red or green things. I can only select elements that they're actually made in Rhino directly. So they're almost like ghost elements here in red or green. Okay, I can deselect in Grasshopper by clicking outside and selecting another one, etc., etc. There's also these elements. Okay, these elements are like a series of numbers, a slide number, so we can actually go to those points of count and start moving those points, and you see how actually the red elements start to be modifying as I change those numbers. So we're changing a parameter here that somehow connects with these tools and changes the output at the end, the final result. As you can see, there are many slide numbers, these elements. You can all change those, and you see how it starts having different operations. This, in case you're wondering, this title changes when you hook it into a specific component. This is a seed, so you can create different alterations within that specific element. Factor. This is regarding scale of the elements. Degrees, most probably regards to rotation, as you can see. Okay, so these slide numbers are for you to change and accommodate it to an intentional final result. So here's the way it works. These two top elements here in the top left are actually selecting an element within Rhino. That's why it turns green, the one that we have here. And the other one, I selected this component. Okay, there's a way of doing that I'm going to explain in a second. And as a final result, you get these elements. The question is how I go from ghosted Grasshopper elements to real Rhino elements. So it's as simple as selecting one of the outputs and right-clicking on the center where it says move in this case, and say bake. Bake what allows you to generate that ghosted element and creates a Rhino element into it. So if you say bake and you choose the layer you want to make it in, like layer 2, automatically we get these shapes. Okay, I could do that for several of them at the same time, but I cannot right click. I actually can, before you couldn't. And you can say bake and place it in a new layer, layer 4. So here's the thing, once you get the elements from ghosted to not ghosted, you can close Grasshopper with no problem. No big deal, and you can work as you would normally in Rhino. So I can now do a Boolean intersection, select the main box, enter, and select the rest, enter, to get a proposal for the next Rhino condition. Let's see if it works, because it's kind of complex, but this could be one of your proposals. Now again, I don't have to say this because you have done it thousands of times, but you go to your specific view. I don't know if you're using an isometric view or any other view, and let's hide this one, and you make 2D and you create a new proposal. You do the extract lines with the make 2D, you take it to Illustrator, you fix the line weight and quality the same way as the rest of the drawings. You make a PDF or you drag it into InDesign directly. Okay, I'm going to delete this proposal because I'm going to talk a little bit more on Grasshopper. Here's what happens when you delete the box, the main box that was there. Here is missing information. Orange means missing, and if you have red in Grasshopper, it means it's not working. There's a problem with the connection. Since I deleted this box, this element doesn't exist, so the story of Grasshopper's tools has no information, so that's why it's not working. I'm going to Control C to get back to that box. Okay, there it is, and automatically turns green. Okay, but the main question is now, hey, I also created this element here, no? Can I delete this? Oh, if I delete it, this element turns orange, means that it doesn't exist. Let's see if I create a new element as a unit. I'm gonna create a Boolean difference, and again I'm working on Rhino here, even though I have Grasshopper open. I'm going to select this one, enter, and this one, and I'm going to use this as the new element that repeats inside of that box. To insert elements from Rhino into Grasshopper is as simple as right clicking on the geometry that you want, say set one geometry. Grasshopper closes because it's expecting you to select an element, and there you go. Instead of the previous object repeated many times inside of that box, you have this element now. So it will be as simple as selecting this tree, right click, bake, select the layer, OK. Actually, it only creates one, I think. You have to go one by one. Bake, and bake. Okay, I'm going to close this now because I have my proposal, and I'm going to do a Boolean intersection. Now the intersection is good because you can select the overall element, enter, and select all of the rest, and it creates a new project there. And again, go to the same view, make 2D, line drawings in Illustrator, and take it into InDesign, okay? But what if my container is not this one? That's a tricky thing. What if actually my container is the one we're using from the beginning, the project base, no? Which in my case, I just created one very fast here for you to understand the idea. What if this is, actually it won't be like this. What if I'm going to do a polyline very fast, and I'm going to create a simulation of one of your projects. Of course, it's not as accurate as the ones you have. Okay, I'm going to select both and extrude them. And again, imagine for a second that this is actually your condition of emptiness, no? Most of you have a project that's like this shape. Other ones you might have a rectangular. So we can open Grasshopper. Again, if it was closed, and I'm closing by clicking on this element and close, it's no save, I can go and open again that file. Which I have it under my Professor 3609, Grasshopper. And I'm going to select the first one again, is the same one. And both of them come orange because it doesn't understand none of the systems, okay? The top one stands for the space around our building, so it's right click, set one geometry, close this Grasshopper, you select that one and it turns green, so you know it's working. Now then you need a module, so this is where you can get a little bit more like picky, you know, you can do a little more something interesting. Let's imagine actually like a stretched element like this, okay? And you right click, set one geometry and select it, and it starts copying that. By the way, you can change this automatically and it changes in Grasshopper immediately, as you can see. I'm going to change the count so I have more options, the seed, and the factor could be a little bit larger, and then the degrees is the rotation. And again, I go and bake. The first one, bake, layer 1. The second one, select in the center, bake, layer 2. Third one, bake, layer 4. I close Grasshopper because I'm done with that. I don't even need this element anymore. And Boolean intersection, box, enter, select, enter. So this could be another interesting proposal. And this has the logic that is really going to be laser cut properly. So I can go again to my view, isometric, whatever. I do a make to the. I make sure that it has, you know, the views that I always use, hidden lines, turn on, etc. And there you have your project. You fix the lines in Illustrator, etc. What if I want to laser cut this? Well, first of all, the scale of this module, of this project, should be exactly the size of your existing physical model. No, it cannot be a scale like in feet. This is the one. This is a real scale. You actually have to scale it down into the proportion that you're dealing with in your physical model. No? So once you have scaled it down, you can just do the contour, as I said before. You can say contour is the command that you write down, and you select whatever you want to contour. You press enter, you go to the bottom of the element, you set the direction of the cuts, and the main question is this one, distance between contours, and this is the thickness of your material. So if I say, you know, 0.1, and that's, you know, the relationship you have to have. First, think of the material you're going to use, what plexiglass thickness you're going to use. This is probably exaggerated, no? So let's do it again. Contour, select, you start from the beginning, perpendicular up, and you say, let's say 0.5 if it's the thickness of the material. You see all those cuts? If I go to the 3D, each of those It's a specific cut. I'm going to actually join. This is kind of important. And I'm going to select one of them and move it out. See that? Another one. Another one. So each of those is a section of the model. So what I'm going to do is from the front view, and again I'm control tabbing. Here is. Here, these are the contours, that's why they look all like this. And this is the physical model. You can select each of them and move them out. Now it's good to have them like this because you need them separated, no? Etc, etc. There they are. These are the contouring. These are each of the cuts that you have to operate within your project. Now these are floating. So imagine these were all the cuts that you need to come along with. You take them out. You can say project to C-plane. And you can say delete, yes, so they come and smashed against the C-plane, which is the grid element. And you can go to the top view and you can export it as Illustrator, or you can place them in a template from Rhino. Okay, so these elements should be placed, obviously organized, one after the other one, so you know exactly the condition of how they should be glued afterwards, no? Otherwise you're going to lose track of it, especially with the very complex projects, no? Again, you download the templates from the web, you all know that at this point, and you can generate this series of cuts. You buy the plexiglass first to get the thickness, and after you get the thickness, you do the contour on your project, separate the sections, and laser cut it. Okay, then you glue, and it's all more about physical world.